Welcome to a special edition of New York State of Mind. It is currently 10:30 p.m., the night before Christmas, I guess we could say, because the NFL is beginning tomorrow and we are very excited. We're going to do a special NFL-themed show for you guys today, and hopefully we can get it up tomorrow morning so you could watch it before the Chiefs-Texans game tomorrow. Without further ado, let's get started. We're going to do our division picks. We're going to start with the AFC. So, Mitch, I'll let you go first. Who do you have winning the AFC East? And I guarantee it's not the Bills.
Well, I think you're going to be wrong on that one. I'm definitely going with the Bills. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, I don't think the Patriots, although still with Bill Belichick, this isn't the same Patriots team that we're accustomed to seeing. No Tom Brady, all these players opting out. It just seems like it's kind of time for someone to finally take this division. And the Jets are a mess. Miami, is a year away, I think, from really contending. So I think kind of almost by default, kind of has to be the Bills.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. I think Miami actually will be very competitive this year. And I think next year we're going to start to see maybe a little rivalry between the Bills and Miami. I think that would be really cool to see. I think Tua will actually be good if he's healthy next year. But that's next year, of course. Cam Newton on the Patriots, it's going to be interesting. Does not mean it's going to be good. They still lack a lot of players on both sides of the ball. Obviously, they're limited at the wide receiver position outside of Julian Edelman, and they're missing a lot of pieces on defense with all the opt-outs that they've had. And as you said, the Jets are the Jets. I'm taking the Bills as well. The AFC South, who do you have coming out of there?
For me, the South is going to be the Colts. This is a weird division in football, I think. I mean, you got the Jaguars were tanking, Texans traded DeAndre Hopkins. It's a lot of, who knows what in a way in this division. But I think that, despite the fact that I'm not the biggest fan of Philip Rivers' points career, I think he's kind of washed up. They got a great O-line, great running game, good receivers, good defense. That's a team that by itself, I think can win this division. I think Philip Rivers won't be a terrible quarterback this year, but I'm expecting some pretty mediocre numbers from him. But overall, I think this is a very complete and well-built Colts team, which is why I have them winning the South.
Yeah, it kind of seems like it's process of elimination when it comes down to this division. But I actually think the Colts will be very solid this year. Obviously, they still have that offensive line. I think Jonathan Taylor and Marlon Mack will be a great 1-2 punch. I think they're going to be running all over teams. Obviously, they still have Quentin Nelson. They drafted Michael Pittman, as you mentioned. I think the offensive line will give Rivers time, and he won't be as bad. I think as last year. I think he'll be a good sort of game manager. He'll have some good games, and I think the Colts will take this division as well. And glancing down at your phone, I think we have the same picks for everyone. So I guess we can go division by division and just sort of explain our reasoning then.
All right. I mean, I got the Ravens winning the North.
So, as do I.
I will say this: Pittsburgh is a team that I think actually could contend if Roethlisberger's healthy. That's very good football team right there. But because we just don't know with Big Ben, I'm going to go with Lamar and the Ravens. They're just so dynamic on both sides of the ball. So
yeah, the Steelers actually they won 8 games last year with Duck Hodges.
They won 9-7. Yeah.
Oh, 9 games.
Yeah, 9-7.
They won 9 games with Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph as their 2 quarterbacks. So if they can get some somewhat consistent play at the quarterback position, they could definitely make some noise and potentially steal that division from the favored Ravens. What about the AFC West? I'm interested to see who you have coming out of this division.
Surprisingly, it's going to be the Kansas City Chiefs. They're just, they're the defending champs. They only got better, frankly, this offseason adding Clyde Edwards-Helaire to that football team.
That's your guy right there.
That's my guy. And, they retained everybody, really. So how could you not think this team's going to win and contend for a Super Bowl?
Yeah, they did lose Damian Williams, but then you just plug in a guy like Clyde Edwards-Helaire and everything's fine.
Exactly.
There's not much discussion right there. You still have Patrick Mahomes. You still have Tyreek Hill. You still have Travis Kelce.
Right.
Still have Andy Reid. I think they'll take this division quite easily. Let's move on to the NFC. We'll start with the NFC East, a team that I resent It just seems like every year I'm picking between two teams that I
Yep.
don't like, and it's the same case this year. I'm taking the Dallas Cowboys to win this division. I think that I still can't believe that they got CeeDee Lamb. That just
Yeah.
blows my mind. It makes me angry because I love CeeDee Lamb and I hate to see him in a Cowboys uniform. But I think I don't love McCarthy, but I think that a change of coach, a change in the head coach for the team will be good. I think Jason Garrett's sort of coaching method got a little stale in Dallas, and I think the players will react well to having a new established coach there, and I think they'll take the division. I think they'll go somewhere around 10-6.
Yeah, I also got the Cowboys winning this division, and for me, it just came down to they got the most talent, in this division, and you got to think that eventually Dallas will put it together.
Yeah.
Eventually they're going to have a good season. They're so talented for what their record was a season ago, and I just think that this year with Mike McCarthy, they finally win an NFC East that is so
It's up
weak
for
in
grabs.
my opinion.
Yeah.
Arguably the as far as contenders are concerned and quality football teams, probably the worst division of football. No
Ouch,
offense,
dude.
Pat.
Ouch.
Mainly with
Ouch.
Washington, that's who's really weighing it down. But it's a division that doesn't have a lot of great teams, and I think that eventually their talent's going to have to prevail at some point.
The NFC South, I'm not going to lie to you, I did consider taking the sexy pick in Tampa Bay.
That's
But
understandable.
I'm gonna stick with the Saints. They're reliable. I know what I'm getting. They added Emmanuel Sanders. I think that will make their offense even more scary. It seems like they've gotten that running back contract situation sorted out with Kamara. Did he sign a deal yet, or are they?
I think that they're close. They're close.
They're close, so they'll have Alvin Kamara. They obviously still have Michael Thomas. That offense is great. They still have Marshawn Lattimore, Cam Jordan. Their defense is still great. Sean Payton. I know what I'm getting with them.
Yeah.
I think they'll take this division.
No,
easy.
I agree. Saints, there's just, they've won the last 2 years in a row, and it just seems like this roster is just so well put together. They still got Drew Brees and Sean Payton. They still got playmakers all over the field.
Yeah.
Their defense is still pretty good. Yeah, I just think that the Bucks could absolutely contend for that division title, but there's just a lot of new moving pieces and parts to them that they might be a little rusty out of the gate. Saints, they've been the same team for the last couple of years.
And also a thing to keep your eye out for, Mike Evans actually is dealing with a hamstring injury, and although it's not a big deal right now, we know those injuries can linger.
They
so
can
just
linger, yes,
something
sir.
to keep your eye on. NFC North. I got to admit, this is a pick that hurts me because I love Aaron Rodgers, but I just think that Green Bay did a bad job in the draft in terms of winning now. Maybe it will help them in the future with Jordan Love and A.J. Dillon and all the other draft picks that they made. But I'm going to pick the Vikings. I don't love Kirk Cousins, but I think their roster is great. They picked up Yannick Ngakoue, and although they traded Diggs, they replaced him with a player that plays somewhat similar to him in Justin Jefferson out of LSU. So I'm going to take the Vikings to win that division.
Yeah, I'm going with the Vikings as well. And Green Bay just has a weird vibe, I feel like, this season. The off-season was strange. Apparently, Rodgers was very upset with management. And you just feel like...
how could you not be?
Even though this was a 13-3 football team a season ago, that, it just seems like they're not going to be at that level this year. Like, they had a chance to really put themselves as arguably the lead candidate to be the Super Bowl champion preseason, and they didn't capitalize. They kind of just did nothing.
Yeah.
So...
I could rant about that for
I
a
agree.
while. I'm not going to.
Yeah,
My energy is staying here. NFC West, obviously the defending NFC champion 49ers are in this division, but I believe you are as well, are going to go with the Seattle Seahawks. Obviously, they made the big splash move in adding Jamal Adams. They still have a top 5 player in the league in Russell Wilson, in my opinion, obviously. Pete Carroll, sort of the same thing with the Saints. You know what you're getting from them. They're going to have a winning record, most likely. I'm going to take the Seahawks to win this division, too.
Yeah, I'm going Seattle. And, for San Francisco, they're a good team, but I feel like a lot needs to work in order for them to win, right? Defense, running game, Garoppolo. For the Seahawks, as long as Russell Wilson's playing well, they'll win football games. And they got talent with Metcalf and
Tyler
Lockett, just some nice players on the outside for Russell Wilson.
They also added Greg Olsen too. That'll help.
Yep. Defense, I think, will be a little bit better. I mean, to me, this is definitely, arguably the best team in the NFC. I think.
Yeah. So hopefully from now on, I know we just agreed a lot, but hopefully we should have some discrepancies for now on.
Sorry for the lack of debate there. We did
this. We did this without checking who we picked. We thought we'd have some
some
arguments and debate there, but I guess not. I guess we're more similar than we thought. Okay. Super Bowl picks. Who do you have and why?
So I got the Chiefs playing the Saints. Saints winning.
Okay.
And I just think that Drew Brees will get one last ring.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that the Saints, it's been 2 years of just heartbreak in the playoffs, and that they come in with such a chip on their shoulder that they just steamroll the playoffs, get to that Super Bowl, and even though the Chiefs are a strong team, I mean, you know, repeating is hard, and Drew Brees has won a Super Bowl before, you know, and he's hungry. It's been a while, but I'm going with the Saints.
You know, I really did want to pick the Saints, and I'm glad I didn't because we would have agreed again. So, I mean, I did pick the Saints the past 2 years to win the Super Bowl, and it broke my heart both times.
Yeah.
I was very close, but this year I'm going to take Seattle to win over the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I think Russell Wilson has a huge year. Obviously, I think Pete Carroll has a history of working well with star defensive backs. Just added Jamal Adams. I think this is the year that Seattle breaks through and makes the Super Bowl and just barely takes it over a Patrick Mahomes-led Chiefs team. So we're going to get into some other categories here. I think we'll have even more debate amongst this now. Let's start with the most underrated team. Or maybe not the most underrated team in the NFL, but a team that you think is being slept on right now. Who do you have and why?
So mine's going to be, I think this will finally be the first debate we have here. I'm going with the Falcons. Not a common pick, but let me explain. So Atlanta has in this team, I think, for 2 straight years now, where people, you know, think it's they're gonna, you know, win the division, they're gonna be good this year, and they've been bad. Obviously, they've been sub 500. Dan Quinn's in the hot seat, but I think with a year of having having Calvin Ridley develop, you know, having him and Julio healthy, along with Todd Gurley, I know his knee is, you know, kind of out of whack, but just having that playmaker in the offense helps. The offensive line, they spent 2 first-round picks on it last year. That should now mesh a little bit better. You know, they're still a team that is not that far off from the team that won the Super, or that lost the Super Bowl just a few seasons ago. And you know, if they can put it together, you know, I'm not sitting here saying they're gonna, you know, win the NFC South or whatever, but they might be contending for a playoff spot, I think.
So do you think that they will, I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but do you think they'll be better or worse than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
I'm going to go with worse, because I think the Bucs are a more complete roster.
Okay.
But I think Atlanta could be fighting for that 7th and final playoff spot in the NFC South. I think that they will not be at the bottom of the league like they have in the last 2 years. They will be legitimately contending, I think, for a playoff spot.
Okay, all right. I think Atlanta will end up somewhere between 8-8 and 9-7. I don't think they'll be that bad. I mean, the past 2 years, I didn't think they were going to be as bad as they were, but I don't know. We'll see. For me, most underrated, it was kind of a hard choice, but I'm going to go with the Los Angeles Chargers. I think it's an advantage for them that there's not going to be any fans at any of these games because they're used to playing with no fans anyway. I think their defense is good. They had a lot of pieces in the secondary. Obviously, losing Derwin James really hurts a lot, and that's why I struggled with this pick, because if he was playing, I would have no problem making this pick. But I'm still going to take them. I really like their draft pick in Kenneth Murray. I think he's going to be a beast. And I think Tyrod Taylor is going to be a solid quarterback. I think he's going to be good enough to get them to contend for a wild card spot in the AFC.
Yeah, Chargers are a tricky team to figure out. I know Anthony Lynn's also a little bit on the hot seat. I mean, obviously for me, the reason why I'm not so high on the Chargers is the quarterback situation.
You know Tyrod better than anybody.
I know Tyrod real well, and listen, Tyrod Taylor is not a bad quarterback, but when you need your quarterback to go out there, lead your team, win a tough one, doesn't always come through, and for these playoff teams, it's a lot of those kind of close, fluky games that you gotta win in order to kind of sneak in there, and Tyrod doesn't usually win them.
Yeah.
And I think you kind of saw in Cleveland where he was surrounded by a fair amount of talent and how much he struggled. When he was really pushed, I think, a little bit beyond his limits. So, I mean, listen, not to bag on Tyrod. Like, I do, think he's a solid NFL quarterback, but I'm just not the biggest believer that he's going to be able to, with a fluky offseason, hasn't been a starter for 2 seasons now. How is he going to come in there and play? I'm not too sure, to be honest.
For me, I just think it's about him managing the game. I liked their pickup in Chris Harris Jr. and Linval Joseph. I think they're going to run the ball a lot with Eckler, and I think they'll go somewhere between 9-7 and 8-8. Hopefully, they can make the playoffs. Make me look good for that pick, because you don't know with Tyrod. What about most overrated team?
So I'm going to go with a team that's been getting a ton of hype this offseason. I'm going with the Arizona Cardinals. And listen, I like the Cardinals.
I'm a big Kyler guy.
Yeah, I like the Cardinals. I like what they're doing. They've really surrounded Kyler Murray with a lot of exciting options. Defense got a few playmakers, but the reason why I am kind of backing off Arizona a little bit is really for the fact that Kyler's still a young passer, right? Second, we saw what happened with Baker Mayfield year 2 after everyone was hyping him up year 1. Yeah. I think Kyler's different, but I'm just saying, it's not impossible.
Yeah.
And this roster has holes. The O-line still isn't ideal, Defense and still has got some issues on the D-line outside of Chandler Jones. I think there's just a kind of a lack of big-time playmakers on that defense.
Yeah.
And, ultimately, there's still people with mixed feelings about this Cliff Kingsbury offense. Some people still think it's really gadgety and that the NFL is going to figure it out this year and destroy it, basically. So I'm just saying, I'm not as throwing all, my, coins in the basket, in the Arizona, bank account or whatever. I just don't think that Arizona, saying they're going to win the division and all this, I think it's just a little premature.
Yeah, I think that Arizona will actually be very competitive this year. I think they're going to win probably 8 games, maybe 7. I would hope 8 games. I think obviously DeAndre Hopkins is the big sexy move that everyone's talking about. They picked up Isaiah Simmons, so they'll be better. But obviously, coming from a Giants fan, you cannot ignore the offensive line. That's a huge deal, because if you don't have an offensive line,
doesn't matter.
It does not matter what skills position players. I'm telling you firsthand, it does not matter. So yeah, I would have to agree with you there. I think they're a year away. I'm a big believer in Kyler, but I think they're a year away. For me, it's the Titans, and it comes down to this. I'm not a believer in Ryan Tannehill. I think he's a solid starting quarterback, but I think teams are going to load the box and say, hey, Ryan Tannehill beat us. I think A.J. Brown is a good receiver, but at the end of the day, you can't rely on a running back as insane and absurd as Derrick Henry is. I don't think you can rely on him to carry you through 16 games. I think they could potentially make the wild card, but if they do, first round exit. I do not believe in the Titans this year. I don't think they should have paid Ryan Tannehill all that money in the offseason.
Yeah, I almost picked the Titans here too. What made me a little hesitant is just because their division is just so for grabs. And, listen, this team did go to the AFC Championship game last year, and you have to take that in consideration, but they did it in such a unsustainable way.
Yeah.
Just running Derrick Henry every play and Tannehill did not throw for more than 100 yards in either of those 2 wins.
Yeah.
Against Baltimore and against New England.
I just feel like that's something easy to figure out.
That is something that was a little playoff kind of little spurt there with Derrick Henry. I don't think. I think Henry will still have a great year, of course, but I just think that you're right. Tannehill, that passing offense is just. I think that their defenses are going to force them to throw the ball more than they want to, and like you said, Tannehill is a good quarterback, but he's not this, awesome franchise guy. Like, they frankly paid him.
Yeah,
to be honest,
that blew my mind how they paid him before they paid Henry.
Tennessee just seems kind of like Jacksonville.
Yeah,
in 2017 a little bit.
I like that comparison. Yeah,
there's a lot of talent there, but something about it just doesn't seem like it
just doesn't add
right.
up.
Yes,
they did add Clowney, but they did lose Jarrell Casey as well. The defense will still be solid. I'm just not a believer in the quarterback.
Let's not forget too. Before they got in that winning streak, I know it had a lot to do with Mariota Tannehill, but some of those losses did come down to poor coaching. Everyone's hyping up Vrabel, but Vrabel has had some bad, lost in some games before, Tannehill stepped in, and you got to wonder if that could come back to, haunt them, but
Yeah, we shall
we'll see.
What about a team that made the playoffs last year but won't this year?
So for me, the team that I'm going with, this is probably an easy pick, but it's the Philadelphia Eagles.
Okay.
I think that their roster it's been in this weird territory since they last, won the Super Bowl of there's a lot of talent, but yet there's, holes, and I don't know, man. They just last year was weird for me. I know there were injuries, but sure they get Darius Slay, but like their corners don't make it to the 53-man roster. And these are guys they drafted pretty high the last couple of seasons. They still don't have much at receiver. I'm not sure I'm the biggest fan of Jalen Rigor.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I don't know why would you? I don't know. I don't know why they were picking over Justin
I know that
Jefferson.
some people
That's
said
a
it.
whole
I know
different
people have said.
discussion.
I know people have said that Rigor's had a good camp, but to me that was not really the right pick for their offense. I still don't know, what their offensive line is looking like right now. I think Jason Peters is supposed to start left tackle, but he's had some health injuries over the last couple seasons. So for me, Philly, just doesn't seem like a team that's gonna have enough to make the playoffs this year. In my opinion.
I will say though, I am still a big believer in our guy Miles Sanders. I think he's gonna have a great year. For me, it's also somewhat of an obvious pick, but it will sound weird. I'm taking the New England Patriots, and that must be music to your ears to hear that.
Absolutely.
Obviously, I actually think Cam Newton's going to have a good year. I really do. I like Cam Newton. He seems very motivated. Bill Belichick, who obviously is not the biggest media guy, has actually come out and said that he's been the hardest worker on the team. So that's great to hear. I think he'll have a pretty good year. When it comes down to it, you can't overcome all of the losses that they've had on both sides of the ball. Losing Tom Brady is just going to be a weird feel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I think they'll win. I think they'll maybe go 500, maybe win 9 games, but I think they'll win 7 to 8 games probably most likely.
No, I actually agree with that. I think New England's probably like an 8-8 football team, maybe 9-7, maybe sneaks in the playoffs. To me though, you're right. They just lost so much.
They lost from opt-outs on the defensive side of the ball. I'm sure
just guys moving on. I mean. Yeah.
This is just it seems like a transition year for them. I think with Belichick obviously having one of the greatest coaches of all time, that will help them win games that maybe they should lose.
And at the end of the day, I mean, they did sign Cam Newton. If they were really tanking, right, they would have just rolled out Jarrett Stidham and just see what he's got. So, to me, I mean, that they're trying to win this year. I just think you can't expect them to be the same Patriots we've seen, like you've said, year in, year out. So I definitely, agree with you on this take.
Okay, so the opposite now. A team that didn't make the playoffs last year but will this year.
So I'm actually going to go with the Cleveland Browns. So, basically, with Cleveland, I think that Stefanski is kind of the right guy they needed. I think that, obviously, Freddie Kitchens was not the right hire. They fixed the O-line, and it kind of feels like it's now or never for New England, for Cleveland. So much talent, so many players. Baker Mayfield's got to prove it. I mean, it's put up or shut up for them. I mean, they had all that love last year. Were very disappointing, but with an improved O-line, which even in a pinch, I mean, we saw for some teams last year that improved their O-lines. With the Bills last season, the Colts 2 seasons ago, how much of a difference maker that can make for a football team. So, we'll see with Cleveland. Still got talent. All
right, well, I said I wasn't going to agree with you here, but I ended up agreeing with you again. I'm going to take the Cleveland Browns. I hope we're not jinxing them right now. But, as you said, Stefanski, I like him a lot more than Freddie Kitchens. I'll just put it like that. They signed, excuse me if I'm getting his name wrong, Jack Conklin from the Tennessee Titans. He's going to help them at tackle. I think Baker has a bounce-back year. I think in particular Odell Beckham will have a bounce-back year. He had 1,000 yards last year, and he was playing injured. Defensive side of the ball, they do have playmakers. I just think that, like you said, this is it for Baker. He's got to have a good year, or else he could be out of there.
Absolutely.
So I think he's going to feel the pressure. I don't think Baker is a tremendous talent, but I do think he's a starting quarterback in the league, and I think he will prove that this year.
Yeah, and real quick, just another team that added on to that, which I'm sure you agree with, but I also have the Buccaneers
Yeah.
as well as another team. I mean, I think everyone, for them, it's more a matter of are they Super Bowl contenders or not.
Yeah.
But wanted to throw that out there because I think that's a team that we both were thinking about putting in this category.
Yeah, real quick. I think it's going to be very interesting just to see not only Tom Brady just in a Buccaneers uniform, but this guy is, better than I do. He is just a self-motivated guy. I can't wait for him to see him, because he's really trying to prove something this year. He's trying to prove that he is not a product of the system in New England. So we're going to be moving on to MVP. Who do you have winning the Most Valuable Player award this year?
I'm going with someone who I think certainly deserves an MVP.
Oh,
it's about
God.
time.
Oh, no. Don't tell me you're going to agree with me again.
Drew Brees.
Okay. All right. That's fine. All right.
I'm going
awesome.
with Drew Brees. I think that he finally has. Once again, I've been saying this has been a theme of my night. The Saints are finally going to have that season that everyone's been waiting for them. And I think Drew Brees is going to be your MVP this season. I think he's going to have a great year. They're talented. They're loaded. I mean, that's all I got to say.
Does it worry you that he's 43 years old?
That's Tom Brady.
42 years old?
I think is he 39? 41?
He's 39. Oh, I was wrong.
I mean, listen,
I'm gonna look it up real
Tom
quick.
Brady won the MVP, back in 2017.
Oh, no. I'm
40.
not.
So, I mean, listen, Drew Brees, I think, the age doesn't bother me because his play hasn't slowed down.
He's 41.
Yeah, he's still the same player
Yeah.
that he's always been. So, yeah, no, I'm not concerned whatsoever.
No, I think Brees will be great as well. I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. My pick is someone that it blows my mind how this guy has not gotten an MVP vote. Russell Wilson. Like you said, it's your theme that the Saints are going to have a big year this year. I think the Seahawks are going to have a big year. I obviously picked them to win the Super Bowl. Listen, this guy Russell Wilson came into the league. He hasn't had a losing season. The guy just puts guys on his back. He's just tremendous when it comes to just carrying the team and just racking up wins. I think he's going to have a big year. I think DK Metcalf is going to have a breakout season at wide receiver. Obviously, they still have Tyler Lockett. They added Greg Olsen, Chris Carson. Not the greatest supporting cast, but I think that's what makes Russell Wilson great. He's able to uplift other players around him, and that's why I think he'll win MVP this year. Moving on to Offensive Player of the Year. Who do you have for that?
Staying with my theme, going with Alvin Kamara.
So it's just the Saints year.
It's the Saints' year.
Dang.
I mean, I think that Alvin Kamara, he's about to get paid, as we've said, kind of at the top of the
And
show.
he wasn't healthy last year.
No, and I think people are forgetting, man, when this guy is healthy,
Oh, yeah, no question.
he's as dynamic as any back in football. I
Yeah.
think the short offseason for these injured guys actually helped. There's less contact, less hitting.
Mhm.
They can just work on rehab and get better. And I think that that Alvin Kamara, out of all those Saints playmakers, is going to be key for them. Running the football, catching the ball as well out of the backfield. I think he's going to have one of those years where he's kind of 2,000 plus yards of scrimmage and a ton of touchdowns because he's awesome. Obviously.
Yeah. Call me a homer. I have a Penn State flag in the back, and I have a Giants
I
shirt
had a
on.
feeling this was what you
I'm
were gonna
going with
pick.
Saquon Barkley to win Offensive Player of the Year this year. I don't care if the Giants aren't making the playoffs. The offensive line did get better. It's not great. They did add Andrew Thomas in the draft. I don't expect him to be perfect, but I think that he'll be serviceable and reliable. They still have Kevin Zeitler. Nick Gates at center, I think he'll be solid. And obviously the rest of the line I think will be good enough, because when this guy has a decent offensive line,
Right.
he can do some crazy things, as we've seen his rookie year playing with a top 5 worst offensive line in the league. He was top 3 in every statistical category for running backs. I think this is the year where he sort of has a McCaffrey-like year. Even though the team isn't that good, he just goes crazy and puts up some absurd numbers. I'm going with Saquon Barkley.
That's totally understandable for sure. Who do you got winning Defensive Player of the Year?
I want to hear what you think about this, because I think you'll be proud of me. I'm going Trey White, and I'm picking him because not only because he just got that big extension, but I watched this guy play last year, and you were hyping him up to me. I wasn't really sure about how good he was. I knew he was good, but just watching this guy play last year, man, he was all over the field, locking guys up. He's probably the best corner in the league right now. I'm taking him. I think this Bills defense is going to be arguably the best defense in the league, maybe outside of Pittsburgh this year. But I think Trey White gets a Defensive Player of the Year this year.
Well, you said you were a homer in the last pick, so that makes two of us. Because I also picked Trey White as well.
All right, let's go. Let's go.
I mean, we're both on the same page tonight, clearly.
Yeah.
Same thing as you said, man. Trey White, I think that last year you could have made the argument that he should have won as far as Defensive Player of the Year. I just don't think that he got the attention he deserved until the midway point where people were starting to recognize that Buffalo is kind of good, And then all of a sudden it was like, wow, that Pittsburgh game was when, it seemed like Trey White was kind of legitimate. I think that this year, with the expectations the Bills and he, himself have, he got paid as a top corner, with all those primetime games, he's going to have ample opportunity. And plus, Bills are facing a lot of tough teams this year, a lot of good receivers. He's going to showcase the whole world, hey, I'm the best in the game. And I think that, after the season, people will agree. Now, I will say this. I think T.J. Watt could be another guy that could win it this year as well. Yeah. Similar ideal. I think last year, towards the end of the season, people started to realize, wow, T.J. Watt's a menace. I just don't think that Pittsburgh team was quite good enough for him to really win it. If they're good this year, he should absolutely be in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year.
You mentioned T.J. Watt. I also wanted to throw out two more names. They're brothers, the Bosa brothers. I think either of them could win. I think Joey or Nick could go. We saw Nick go crazy last year in just his rookie year, so I think either of them could make a case for Defensive Player of the Year as well. Let's move on to rookies. Offensive Rookie of the Year. Who do you have winning that?
I'm with my guy, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I mean, I just think that fit with his skill set in that offense is just... It's like crazy. It's not fair, man.
It's Madden. It's Madden.
It is Madden. I mean, we're talking about a guy that is quick, shifty, great contact balance, breaks tackles, can catch. I mean, just honestly, I would say a more refined version of Damian Williams, and a guy that can give you more in the run game than Damian Williams. I think that this is a ideal player. I mean, Andy Reid said it. I mean, he said this is the best back I've had since Brian Westbrook. Who was
high praise right
there. I mean, probably, one of the best backs in Eagles history.
Yeah.
And if he has that kind of a career, hell of a pick by the Chiefs, and he's everything they could have wanted.
Yeah, and obviously Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce.
There's a lot of attention, right? And you got to think that
you can't pay attention and
he'll get his numbers, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know what it is, man. We keep agreeing on everything. I picked Clyde Edwards-Helaire too, but I'm actually gonna. We said it all about him just there. I'm gonna throw out another name. I think Justin Jefferson is gonna have a big year this year. And just another name to throw out. I think that Jerry Jeudy is actually the best offensive skills position player in this draft class.
I agree.
But I think that with Cortland Sutton, KJ Hamler, Noah Fant, Melvin Gordon.
And a young team. With a short
young team.
Season, right.
I think that they have a lot of hands to feed. And I think Drew Lock is actually going... Listen, man, I had the Broncos making the playoffs this year, but with a short offseason and Von Miller being out potentially for the whole year, Bradley Chubb is not completely healthy. It's not looking good for Denver. I think Drew Lock will struggle early on. I think he'll figure it out as the season goes on, but I'm not going to pick Jeudy. I'll stick with Helaire or Justin Jefferson.
No, I agree with that one for sure. So who's your defensive rookie of the year now?
Defensive rookie of the year?
Offensive rookies.
As much as it pains me to say this, I have to go Chase Young. This guy is a monster, and the clips that I've been seeing of him in practice just destroy. I know it's the Redskins O-line, but...
The Washington football team.
I'm sorry. The Washington football team's O-line. However, this guy's a monster. You just look at him and you're just like, Jesus. Like this guy is crazy. As you said before, he kind of reminds me of Jadeveon Clowney. I think he'll just have some freakish plays, and I think he'll win Defensive Player of the Year. I do want to throw out another name, just simply because he's one of my favorite players in the class. And unfortunately, another Buckeye, Jeff Okudah. I think he'll have a great year as well.
So I'm actually going to go with completely someone else.
Okay.
I'm going to go with Isaiah Simmons.
Okay. Yeah.
Who is, in this kind of positionless defensive player that we're starting to see with guys like Jamal Adams, Derwin James. This is a thing that works in the NFL clearly, and he's about as unique as an athlete as you're going to get. 6'4", 240, runs a 4.3, 8. I mean, truly a guy that can play anywhere.
He's just a freak
and succeed. And I think that his stat line at the end of the season, it's just going to be something to marvel at, which is why I have him being Defensive Rookie of the Year. I think Chase Young's going to have a great season, but I think that Isaiah Simmons is going to transform that Cardinals defense from one of the worst units in football last year to a respectable unit this year, and I think he's going to play such a pivotal role in that transformation, in my opinion.
Okay, so moving on from our awards, let's talk about Week 1. Obviously, there's a lot of intriguing matchups, including the Texans and the Chiefs tomorrow night, the opener. But we're going to do our usual upset lock. What is your upset pick for this week?
So my upset, I'm taking the Dolphins, who are 6.5-point underdogs to the Patriots. I'm taking them, and like we said,
Fitzmagic,
and also, I mean, let's be real, Miami does have some continuity, specifically on offense.
Yeah.
You look at, the Patriots, just obviously, as we mentioned, it's just not the same team, and Miami is a tough team this year. I think Miami is going to be 7-9, 8-8 football team. They're going to be tough.
I agree with you.
They beat them last year when they were playing for something with Tom Brady. Week 1, weird things happen, so I'm going to go with the Dolphins.
Yeah, no, and in the past, the Patriots have had trouble with the Dolphins as well.
Especially the Patriots have always been a little shaky out of the gate, as well as we've seen in the last several years, too.
Okay, my upset pick, I'm going to take the Panthers. I can't exactly remember who they are playing. Hold on a second. I, for some reason, didn't want to list that down. I will have that just in a second. Hold on a second. Panthers. Oh, okay. The Panthers are playing the Raiders. I don't know why the Raiders are favored in this. I think the Panthers are a better team than the Raiders. I think that Teddy Bridgewater is, although not the most sexy quarterback, or he's not going to gun it down the field, the guy knows how to win games. And I think that him along Christian McCaffrey, although it's Matt Rule's first game as an NFL head coach, I just think the Raiders relocating, there's still so many holes. I know they drafted Henry Ruggs. Their offense will be better this year, but I just don't know, man. I'm taking the Panthers Week 1.
No, I feel that for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, Carolina's a weird team. You feel like they're tanking, but they aren't. They might be not too bad this season.
I think it will be an ugly football game, but I think
I
ultimately the Panthers will come out with that one. Who is your lock for Week 1?
So my lock is the Eagles beating Washington, favored by 6.
Okay.
Washington is just not a good football team, plain and simple. Obviously, don't know how much Ron Rivera is going to be around with what he's going through. I just think that they're just so talentless on both sides of the football. And even though the Eagles, I'm not the biggest fan of them this season, I just think that they're just obviously a better team. They're better, good coach, good quarterback, good team. They'll, for sure win and cover against Washington. What about you?
Going with your team, Buffalo, 6.5. They're playing the Jets. Need I say more? I mean, Jets obviously, they made some moves. They picked up Mekhi Becton out of Louisville. We'll see if he could develop into a good tackle, but I don't think right now he's necessarily ready to serve as a reliable left tackle for Sam Darnold. Obviously, the Jamal Adams trade will hurt them. He was the heart, soul, or whatever you want to say of that defense. He was the entire defense, maybe you could say as well. They lost C.J. Mosley because he opted out, if I'm correct. And I still don't trust them at corner. I think the Bills will potentially make it far in the AFC playoffs this year. And I think that Week 1, it will be pretty easy for them. 6.5, I'll take the Bills.
So now we're going to transition into, talking about some more kind of current news in the NFL, which is a lot of these contracts, big money being handed out during this offseason, which is, interesting to see just because, there was projected the salary cap was going to go down so much next season, but people think actually, due to all these contracts coming out, that maybe GMs are more optimistic about the salary cap. But obviously, Jalen Ramsey, the most recent one, just get big, highest paid cornerback deal in NFL history. As he beat Trey White, who had his deal just a few days before. We saw Deshaun Watson get paid a ton of money recently. A lot of guys, getting paid. Pat, I want your thoughts, though, on this Jalen Ramsey deal.
Jalen Ramsey, listen, I have no problem paying Jalen Ramsey. He's, I think, a top 2 corner in the league, maybe just behind Trey White. But the Rams, they're obviously paying Jared Goff, or also paying Aaron Donald big money, and now you have Jalen Ramsey. It just doesn't seem right. It just seems like they have a lot of holes. Obviously, saw last year their offensive line is getting older, and they just had some problems ever since their Super Bowl. They're just not the same team. They're not as explosive, and the trade for Jalen Ramsey just seemed odd for me because
Yeah.
you knew you had to
They had to
pay
pay
him
him,
at
and yet
some point.
they waited a whole season.
And yet they waited. It seemed like they were negotiating, and then they made him the highest paid player in his position
and listen,
in NFL
like,
history.
Jalen Ramsey's a good player, obviously, but I mean they paid him so much money,
Yeah.
and
He's a great player, but like
you know
they're just in a position that it makes you wonder. Do you think there's any chance they trade Goff in the
I don't think they're
future?
going to trade Goff, but I will say though that their management of salary cap has been pathetic.
Yeah, no. Like,
I mean they're the reason why you don't go all in on trying to win a Super Bowl in a year or two window, because when you go too far in,
that puts
you're
you a couple years back.
puts you several years back, and I think they might have done that to themselves. Yeah, I definitely agree, and I think with Ramsey too, I just think that when you compare, especially because him and Trey White were kind of both working for the same deals, and I think that to be honest, I think White's a better player, and the Bills got White for kind of a lot less, and the Rams, that contract just kind of a mess.
It's just weird, man, because they knew they had to pay him. They knew that
Knew it.
they knew that they were already heading in a direction where they didn't have much flexibility going into the future, and for some reason, it just seems like they dug themselves in an even bigger hole. So that's just a little odd to me. What do you think about Deshaun Watson getting his money? I'm sure.
I mean, he
you have
deserves
no
it.
argu-
Yeah,
no,
Deshaun
no
Watson.
arguments
I
out of
love
me.
Deshaun. I love Deshaun Watson. He's a
Absolutely,
great player,
yeah.
great quarterback, great guy. Deserved the money for sure. And the great thing about it is, it's a 4-year deal. Year by year, he's getting paid more than Mahomes. And if it runs out and the Texans are a mess, he can get out of town if he has to
Yeah.
for nothing. That's nothing. He's not locked in that team long term, which was smart. He can get another big payday too down the road. It's
Yeah.
just perfect deal for him.
Yeah, I
Perfect
agree.
deal.
And the one thing that I love Deshaun Watson as well. The one thing that worries me is Bill O'Brien and that front office. As much as Bill O'Brien was here at Penn State just a few years ago, but you just got to call it as we see it in the NFL. He just hasn't done a great job in terms of running a team, both as a head coach and as a GM. So I don't really trust the team from that standpoint. However, you knew Deshaun Watson wasn't going to go anywhere. He has to sign that deal. He deserves it, absolutely. I think he's top 7, maybe top 5 quarterback in the league right now, and he's only going to get better. So the guy is super talented, obviously great leader, and he deserved it. So
Definitely. All right, so moving on, we're going to go into a little bit of these NBA playoffs, which have been very exciting. I would say you and me were pretty accurate. The Bucks, they got almost swept by the Heat. You call that series pretty much. You said the Heat were going to win. I had my concerns about the Bucks from the beginning.
yeah, we were both pretty on.
I think
on
that
point with that.
they just don't have much. It's just really they're carried by Giannis when it comes down to it, and their playing style just can't get it done in the playoffs. I think there's it's kind of all you can say for them. At this point though, do you think Miami is a legitimate threat to win the East though? Because
I do.
right now, they got some time to rest up while this Toronto-Boston series heads into Game 7. It has been a grueling series for both teams.
I think that if Toronto wins that series, I think that the Heat would be my pick to reach the finals. Because
I agree with you too.
I think that the Heat match up well with Toronto because they play that same style of tough, defensive, like ugly basketball, kind of low scoring. Listen, this Heat team is tough and they have shooters all over the place. I think they match up well with Toronto. I do not think they want to see Boston next round.
No.
Just simply because I think Boston can stretch them out and score a lot of points on them. Because I think Tatum, Brown, obviously Marcus Smart has been unconscious from 3 this past series against Toronto. Obviously Kemba,
Smart,
Kemba's the 4th guy I mentioned. That's when they just have a lot of options. I'm not really sure about Boston's bench compared to the Heat's, but I just think talent-wise, outside of Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, I think the Celtics have an advantage from that standpoint, and it's also never a good thing to go up against Brad Stevens.
Right.
So.
No, but I will say this though, Eric Spoelstra.
No
slouch himself, obviously.
Absolutely.
I personally would love to see that matchup because I think both those coaches are just so good.
It would be a great series.
With the Heat, you do got to say yes, they're young, but they do have Jimmy Butler.
Yeah.
He's a vet who's been there, done that, And having him with all these young players that are playing so kind of like carefree in a good way, they're just the moment's not getting too bright for guys like Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson. That listen, they could totally go right up there with Boston. I mean, I agree with you. I don't think they match up great.
Yeah,
but if they make it a tough series, wouldn't be shocked at all.
I think regardless of who wins, I think the series will go. I'm saying who wins the Toronto Celtics series. I think the conference finals will go 6 or 7 games.
Yeah,
to be honest,
they're tough, man. They're tough.
Yeah. I do want to point out though, one thing that's been really cool to watch. I think Jimmy Butler's whole underdog, tough, hard nosed persona.
Yeah, it's been cool.
I think it sort of has I don't know how to say this, translated or maybe fallen into the other players on that team. They
Right.
sort of assume that as well, and I
Right.
feel like people had all their questions about Jimmy Butler being a good teammate. I think he found a great home in Miami because he fits just perfectly
Right.
in that
He's-
culture. Pat Riley
Yeah.
has always been a tough,
Excellent.
hard-nosed
Yeah.
kind of guy in his culture. I think he fits well there. I think he's going to finish his career.
Yeah, I mean,
there.
he's the leader for that team.
Yeah.
He's the leader, which
Yeah.
crazy to think. Because a year ago, if you were telling me, do you think Jimmy Butler can be a leader of a basketball team? I'd say, are you crazy? No way. He's totally. But he's proved a lot of doubters wrong. Taking on that role. Meanwhile, in the West, I think that it's going to come down to who we kind of thought it would from the beginning. It's going to be either of these LA teams, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the Rockets have played tough with the Lakers, but I mean, as we saw the other night, when LeBron wants to win, man, he'll just do whatever it takes.
Jesus, man,
And,
he's
we were mentioning with Denver, they're just kind of this team that's just not quite there. They're close. They got 2 budding superstars. They got 2 guys who could develop into stars.
Yeah.
They're close, not quite there. And the Clippers, with all those vets that they have, just seems like it's going to come down to an LA versus LA matchup.
Yeah, the Lakers, obviously, I want them to win it all this year, but you know what? It's really I cannot believe how well Rajon Rondo has played in these past couple of games.
You got to give him credit, man.
The big thing for the Lakers will not be LeBron James and Anthony Davis. You know they're going to show up. It's going to be if Rajon Rondo, Kyle Kuzma, Kentavious Caldwell, Danny,
these role players.
if they can knock down shots and play tough, because Kuzma and Rondo have been great in this series against Houston, then they have a shot against the Clippers. That's what it's going to come down to, because the stars are going to show up. The Clippers are a deeper team. It's going to be very interesting to see how the Lakers role players, if they can continue to play as well as they have. I'm not going to lie to you. Houston did give me a little scare in game 1. Their style of play, and PJ Tucker is an animal. I have to give him credit. Going up against Anthony Davis and just battling, man. They're just obviously AD's going to get his, but he's putting up a fight.
Right, you got to respect it.
You got to respect him for sure. Obviously, Harden's going to do his thing. Westbrook really hasn't been great in that series aside from last game, but shifting gears into the Clippers series, I don't really have any doubts. I think the Clippers will end up winning that series in 5. I think they're playing right now, but I think the Clippers are up by a lot. But anyways, yeah, as you said, 2 LA teams. We're going to see what happens in the East, but I think ultimately either LA team is going to win the finals. That's what I think it's going to be.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I said at the beginning of the bubble, and I'm sticking with that.
Yeah,
for sure. Real quick before we sign off, I'll just talk about our teams here.
Yeah,
Bills, Jets,
let's
heading into Week 1. What are we thinking?
All right, well, I want you to go first because your game is first. We're Monday night.
Yeah, so Bills, Jets, Week 1 at home. Obviously, it doesn't really matter because there's no fans, but the Bills. This is a big year for them. They got all the pieces to be a Super Bowl contender. All the pieces. Josh Allen needs to step up to the plate this year, take another big leap, but if he can, with the receivers they have, right, with a lot of these young players we're banking on making big jumps in, Dawson Knox, Devin Singletary, Ed Oliver, right? If these players develop, they should be as good as anyone in the AFC, in my opinion. I think their defense could be top 3.
Yeah.
And now that their D-line's a lot better, I think they're actually going to get some sacks this year, which is the one thing they struggled a little bit with was, bringing the quarterback down. Pretty good at pressure, but couldn't always get there. With Stephon Diggs is just listen,
game changer.
That's the story this offseason for the Bills was Stephon Diggs. I mean, really, that move told you everything you need to know about what Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott think of this football team, which is they're ready to win now, and that we're not playing games. I
Yeah.
mean, we got ourselves a top tier wideout in this football, in this league, and we're ready to go. So
And he fits Allen's play style perfectly. He's been bombing it to him.
oh yeah,
down the
and
field.
so far, the chemistry's been good too. Apparently, they've been getting along really well, which I said was going to happen because I think Stephon Diggs really wanted a quarterback that was just kind of a dog.
Yeah.
Like Kirk Cousins is a nice guy. He's a tough dude, competitor, but Kirk Cousins isn't hurdling a linebacker for a first down.
And it didn't seem like Diggs was really that happy in Minnesota towards the end of that year.
I think Diggs feeds off of Allen and totally kind of follows his lead, like the whole rest of the roster really does. I mean, that's Allen's football team.
Yeah.
So, for the Bills, its expectations are high, and normally, the last time we saw expectations like this, I mean, it was, back when Rex Ryan first came to Buffalo. we saw how that went. It was horrible,
Yeah.
but this just seems and feels just different.
Yeah.
It seems like this is something they've been building towards for years and years and years with McDermott, with Bean, Allen, this nucleus that they've started to re-sign, these guys that they drafted. Like, it all seems like all the stars are kind of aligning for Buffalo this season.
You said it all. Coach, they got him. GM, they've got him. Defense, they got him. For me, it just comes down to one guy, and that's
It's
Josh
Allen. Yeah,
It's Josh Allen.
he's the X factor.
It really, if he can, I'm not saying he wins MVP. If he could establish himself as a great quarterback,
if he has how about if he had a season? Let's take out Matt Ryan's MVP season and his worst year, right?
Mm-hmm.
If he has a season in that level of very good,
yeah.
Do you think that's successful for him for sure?
Absolutely. I think he needs to take a step forward this year, and I think he will. It's just about him becoming more consistent and just becoming the leader of that football team. Because I think the guys around him, you know better than I do, but I think the guys around him,
They're going through a brick wall for him.
love
They
him.
love him.
They love him as long as as long as he can continue to develop. I think the Bills are a sleeper team this year. I'm not going to say they're going to make the Super Bowl.
No. Listen,
if he were to develop, they could go far in the playoffs.
That's what it comes down to. Is if he takes that next step there, that's a whole new Bills team right there.
Yeah.
Now, real quick, your Giants.
Yeah, and as my roommate,
who's also
my season ticket holder, Giants fan, walks into the room.
I think they're going to be a lot more competitive this year, to be
Yeah.
honest. I'll let you talk about them more, but I think that they're going to be much improved under Joe Judge.
Yeah, listen, the goal this year, obviously, for me to be happy with the Giants this year is just to show me that they believe in Joe Judge, show me that he's established a culture there, and just show me that they're competing. Because at the end of the day, it's not about wins and losses. It's just, are these guys committed to establishing a culture here and just going out and playing hard for this dude? Because if they do, that's just something that we haven't seen in a couple of years. The Pat Shurmur obviously didn't have control of the locker room from the second that he got it. Ben McAdoo, do I even have to go there? Going back to Tom Coughlin, this team hasn't had a leader like Joe Judge. So I'm hoping that, obviously, they're going to run the ball a lot with Saquon Barkley. I just want to see them play, as Joe Judge said, I want them to put a product in the field that resembles the New Jersey area. Just a tough, hard-nosed football team that runs the ball, plays good defense. I'm looking for Daniel Jones to take another step forward this year and sort of assert himself as the leader of this team, to go along with Judge and Barkley, obviously. But yeah, I'm just sort of as like a season that's similar to the season that hopefully the Cardinals had last year. They showed some promise. They competed. And they gave you hope for the future. You know what I mean?
No, yeah, definitely. And I think that's realistic for the Giants. I think that their offense should be better. I mean, the O-line should be better.
I'm liking Darius Slayton this year.
I know the weapons are unbelievable. The past, as far as receivers go, but it's a solid group of guys who can help Daniel Jones out. He's got enough to develop. Basically, he doesn't have nothing. He's not like Sam Darnold, who's playing with nobodies. He's got players.
Yeah.
And this defense, I think, will be ultimately the Giants' Achilles heel. I don't think their defense has got a lot, especially in the secondary. I think they're
especially
really
the loss of McKinney, and obviously the release of DeAndre Baker, though he was not that good last year, but still.
These are pieces.
Trading up for a guy that you release a year later is never a good thing. And then their second round pick, Xavier McKinney, who I was very excited to see play.
Now, granted, he could come off IR, quickly, but
it's not something that I'm expecting necessarily.
Right. But yeah, I think this Washington,
do not associate.
Wow, no. I apologize for that one. That was all me. This Giants team, though, I think that this is a team that will be, like you said, a little bit kind of like second half of the season for the Dolphins. You
Yeah.
know, where you really listen, they just don't have the talent to really win. But you can see how hard these guys play, how much Joe Judge is getting out of that roster, because that's what people said with Flores is just, hey, not a lot of talent, but he got the most out of it, and I think Joe Judge could kind of be that kind of a coach. So.
Yeah, before we sign off, 2 keys to the season, I think, for the Giants. Can Evan Ingram stay healthy? Because I think that if he's on the field, that will help
Huge help, yeah.
Daniel Jones drastically. And can this offensive line just prove to be solid, man? Because they obviously drafted Andrew Thomas. That's going to be huge. Let me just say this: the Giants can't afford for Andrew Thomas to be a bust, because, not saying I think he will be, but they can't miss on that pick, because drafting a left tackle with the 4th overall pick, you can't miss on that.
You're expecting an all-pro player year in, year out.
Yeah, so as long as the Giants play hard, the offensive line asserts themselves as somewhat reliable, Daniel Jones and Joe Judge sort of take on those leadership roles and take steps forward, I'm happy. I'm happy as a Giants fan.
Definitely.
So, I mean, this was our NFL season preview with a sprinkle of some NBA in there.
Of course, NBA.
We will hopefully, obviously there's a lot of uncertainty regarding our talk show schedule due to the coronavirus complications that are going on right now. But the current plan right now is to be back in the live studio on Monday at 6:15 to 7:15. We were actually supposed to be in there this past Monday, but it got canceled. So keep your eye out for that. We're gonna tweet it out on Twitter. We'll keep you updated. If not, we'll continue with this sort of my apartment little podcast right here, which is fine.
It's working
fine
for now, right?
So, by any means, we're gonna have a show. So it just depends what means we're going through, I guess you could say.
Absolutely.
So for Mitch Broder, I'm Pat Tartaro. We are signing off. Have a good NFL Week 1.